Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. March Madness is officially here. The play-in tournaments are over. Me and my partner Avery Jones here. Avery, how's it going?
It's good. It's a great day. The field of 64 is complete and it's about to get mad with what we call March Madness.
Yes, and for those of you who are tuning in watching this, we're basically going to do a recap of the first four games that took place this week, and the first one is Alabama State versus St. Francis. What a way to start, this incredible week of sports for March Madness. It came down to a Hail Mary pass. It's not the Christian Laettner Duke Hail Mary one, but something is something. And it just landed in the hands of Omar Knox, a moment that he will never forget because not only he delivered the game-winning layup, but also he will be part of history because this is Alabama State's first NCAA tournament win. Avery, they won this game 70-68. And this is a team, the Hornets team. They grabbed their first lead of the second half when there was 4 minutes remaining of the game. And that's when CJ Hines, he hit a contested three-point shot to give them the lead. But St. Francis, even though they lost, and probably could have defended that Hail Mary possession better. But what I appreciate about St. Francis is that they kept battling back in this game. Take it from there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think for that being the first game of this four play-in, both teams played extremely well. And that's what I love about these first four play-in games. You see these teams that are hungry, and Alabama State, not only did they earn it, but it was very hard contested. Seeing that last pad did give me, the Duke, Kentucky vibes of the Christian Laettner, free throw shot, if you will, but it worked for Alabama State. And for that first game to be so close, I think it is great for both schools. It works in Alabama State favor because they now play in the tournament. But St. Francis has nothing to be worried about. Sure, they probably wanted to go further, but this, like I said, this is a stepping stone. These first play in games are stepping stones for some of these schools that we may have never heard of, but also, like we said, you have these moments that when they happen, they're pretty much part of history. They are part of this year's NCAA tournament madness, if you will. And what a great way to start it off with that game.
Yes, indeed. Alabama State, they will take on Auburn in the South region. Alabama State, they won 10-1 in the last 11 games to end the season. They beat Jackson State to win the SWAC title. And Dante Bass and Mika Simpson, they were big time coming off the bench for the Hornets. So, and one of the things that helped the Hornets to win this game was that they used full court press in the second half. That really helped them out a lot. Noxie kept driving to the basket. So great victory, great game to start off this incredible week of March Madness. Now, Avery, we're gonna go to the second one. North Carolina Tar Heels, as you know, overnight, as a Tar Heel fan and as a St. John's fan, I saw how basically the Tar Heels became public enemy number one overnight in in the sports world. They heard it all. The players heard it all. They heard the negative, the hateful comments, and they looked at it, hey, we're gonna embrace the hate. We're gonna use it to our advantage. And boy, oh boy, did they make San Diego State Aztecs a very good team, by the way.
A
One
very good team, a very good team.
one of the best defensive teams in the country. A team that went to the Final Four 2 years ago, in which
Yes,
we saw it.
yes, yes.
To I
They
that,
decimated them.
that was, oh my God.
That's the only way you can describe it. They decimated them. I
They
thought,
made them look like a JV team.
yes, and we mentioned it. We kind of thought that the Tar Heels were gonna have a better chip on their shoulder, knowing they had to play in. Like I said, I thought they could have at least been like an 8 or 9 seed, even with the loss to Duke in the ACC tournament. But I think they were going to come in hungry with their team against San Diego State. I thought it was going to be a closer game, but man, did North Carolina, you're absolutely, they literally picked apart the Aztecs and said, "Hey, um, we deserve to be in the tournament, not have to play in to get to the tournament." And they made it seem like San Diego State wasn't even like worth the time. And the interesting thing is North Carolina, winning that game, they play Ole Miss. And if that isn't an interesting game to kind of want to look at, uh it makes perfect sense. So you're right there. Like we said before, there are some teams you definitely want to kind of look out for, you want to root for. But at this point, you might want to look at North Carolina because they are hungry. They're embracing the hate. They're like, hey, we shouldn't have had to play in. We should have already been ready, to be playing today anyway, Thursday, that first day. But man, did the Tar Heels want to stick it to kind of the selection committee, if you will. And I'm sorry to say the Aztecs were the victim of that.
After the Tar Heels went on a 20-2 run in the first half, that was San Diego looked depleted after that. Their body language said it all. And even though Carolina went to halftime with a comfortable lead, I was still waiting to see if San Diego was going to show some fight. And I didn't see any fight in them. And it was just amazing to see um, just how dominant Carolina was, even though I picked them to win and I thought it was going to be a close one, like you thought, like many people thought. But this this lopsided win, I'm not the biggest fan of lopsided victories, lopsided games, but because I'm a Tar Heel fan, it brought a smile to my face, like right now. So, but in terms of leadership, I like RJ Davis' leadership, Seth Trimble as well. Both of them, they've made a mission. And if you saw that post-game interview, um, you it was loud and clear. It's loud and clear. So Coach Hubert Davis, he says, I'll take his word for it, that he's not in social media. He's not, doesn't pay attention to any of those things. But the players, they did. They did saw all of that. So UNC Ole Miss, that's gonna be fascinating. Elliot Cadeau, I gotta give him a shout out because he contributed to 12 assists. He played the defense, especially in that first half, and he stayed away from foul trouble, so that's good. But the next game, well, I should say yesterday's game now that we're gonna talk about number 16 Mount St. Mary's versus number 16 American Eagles. Now, the Mountaineers, they won 83-72. You said something basically that I'm going to rebuttal in terms of you have teams that could be a surprise in the tournament. On Twitter, we have some people that are looking at Mount St. Mary's as a team that could make Duke sweat because that's going to be their opponent. So you have some people that they're picking Mount St. Mary's as the potential Cinderella team in this tournament. That's one of them. One of the teams that's thrown out there for a Cinderella story. This is a team that in the last 14 games they won 11-3. They won the MAC tournament title over Iona, and Mount St. Mary's is also the third MAC team to have at least three players to score 17 points or more in an NCAA tournament game. And the last team that did that was Iona in 2017, and then Manhattan back in 1993. So for the Mountaineers, it really came down to three players that carry the team. Jerry Cardilla, Dallas Hobbs, and I'm forgetting the other person's name. But those three, they were the ones who really fill the stat sheet for Mount St. Mary's. American, this could have been a different game, but American, they lost Matt Rogers due to a devastating knee injury, which I felt bad for the kid. Especially in that moment, that magnitude of a game. It could have been a difference maker, but unfortunately, American caught a bad break. But Mount St. Mary's, regardless, they're a good team. And I'm gonna pay attention to that game against Duke to see if they are what people say that they are.
Absolutely. And, it was kind of this one thing for a few years. Would a 16th seed ever beat a one seed? And it happened, for the first time a few years ago. And for the past few years, schools that are number one, they need to pay attention to that 16th seed. If anything, if you're a higher seed, you need to pay attention to who you're playing even if statisticians, odds makers, Vegas says you're a favorite. For example, Alabama State, they're a 32-point underdog, literally from the moment they're matched up to Auburn. Um, uh, Mount St. Mary's, I think they're a 25-point underdog versus Duke. But the thing is, and we've said it, you sometimes get a glimpse of these schools maybe you've never heard of, and they play these really great games and they get in, and now you want to pay attention. So even me as a Duke fan watching that game, I'm like, oh, this is a very hungry team that is playing a favorite, but also playing a team that sometimes in the past has not kind of kept up with the style of play for their opponent. So Duke definitely leads to, if they've watched that film, they need to look at the players they need to guard properly. They need to see if their defensive strategy needs to change. They need to see if maybe playing Cooper Flag is going to work to their advantage, or maybe even with the ankle injury, maybe sit him down an extra game. They did say he was going to be available, but no team, no matter the seed, should ever think that they have a straight path to the national title. And we have seen it not just, the couple of years we've done this, but as college basketball fans like college football, one given day, but these tournaments, it's you play and you're done. And it could be a last second shot. It could be, a great run. And in college basketball, a 10-0 run in 2 minutes could put a dagger in a team. So I'm very interested in watching this Mount St. Mary's team play Duke because Duke needs to not be lazy, if you will. And I've never kind of said Duke to be a lazy team, but they need to pay attention, whether it be if it's a start at a slower tempo and then uh pick up the pace. But they definitely need to not take Mount St. Mary's for granted.
Yes, number one seed teams gotta pay attention. We've seen this in March Madness before, so but that should be an interesting matchup because again, when it comes to number 16 versus number one, number 16 seeds. you have nothing to lose. You don't have that pressure on you, so you're playing with house money. But when you start doing some research and say you're 20, 25, 30 points underdog, that's great disrespect that you use that as motivation. So if I'm those teams, you gotta staple that in your locker room and say, okay, all right.
Put
Um,
put that up in your cubicle. Your
yep.
head coach may use that as motivation, but definitely, and those 16 seeds know, they know it has happened in the past. So that's also fuel, when it comes in. Okay, we're in the tournament, we're 16 seed, but we know, even though we're an underdog, we know we can slay Goliath.
Oh yeah. So Avery, last but not least, and I'm happy that to see the game play out the way it did. Perfect way to close out this playing tournament. Number 11 Xavier versus number 11 Texas. Xavier overcame a 13-point deficit to beat the Longhorns. Marcus Foster, he scored 22. Zach Freemantle, he added 15 for Xavier. Coach Sean Miller said that that's one of the greatest games I've ever been a part of. That was his quote. And they closed out the game on a 16-6 run in the last 6 minutes of the game. Foster, he shot 8 of 9 from the field, including 4 of 5 from downtown. He had 8 rebounds. Texas, they did lead by halftime, 47-39, and 26 of their 47 points came in the paint. They gave Xavier trouble when it came down the paint and made them, commit fouls. But Xavier stepped up their defensive intensity in the second half. And both teams, they do have history playing in the tournament. This was their fourth meeting since 1990 playing in the NCAA tournament. So Xavier now has 2 wins and Texas has 2. But this was a great, impressive victory by Xavier.
I agree with you. It was a close game, even though Xavier won by 6 points. Um, that come from behind when actually cemented Xavier's victory better than anticipated. I did think the Longhorns were gonna kind of pull it out, but like I said, the same thing. I thought the Longhorns played with a little bit of intensity again, like the Tar Heels. They probably felt they didn't need to play in. So again, the Longhorns were there. The Longhorns were there. They just didn't keep the momentum to end it when the clock was at all zeros. And congrats to Xavier, because Xavier now plays Illinois, and that matchup is also interesting too. So, like you said, when a team is hungry, you have got to be careful, especially with Xavier, because they came from behind to get that play-in game. So definitely look out for Xavier and how they start with Illinois. So, congrats to Xavier. Congrats to Xavier. That come from behind could be momentum that works in their favor. So, all in all, these first 4 games all in all, kind of gave the hype of what you anticipated, including a 1 game, although it was lopsided. It was because a team had a chip on their shoulder. Tar Heels had a chip on their shoulder. We're not gonna sit and not say it, but all 4 games were worth their weight. Were definitely worth their weight, and every team that won, Alabama State, North Carolina, Xavier, Mount St. Mary's, they definitely earned it. And like you said, you may have that one moment for a school that gives them the momentum to uh to keep going, to just take it kind of 1 second at a time, one play at a time, to work in their favor. And the field is set. the 64 teams is set, and we're in for some great basketball the next couple days.
Yes, indeed. And today we all have a bunch of games. It's day one of the official March Madness, and it all begins at 12:15 p.m. on CBS with number 8 Louisville versus number 9 Creighton. I feel I'm gonna go with Louisville on that one. I feel that they're, you know, they're not much happy with their seating,
I,
but so I'm gonna pick them because I feel that they're gonna come playing with that hunger. So um, you have many good games. You have Louisville versus Creighton. You have BYU versus VCU. That's one we got to keep an eye on. That one will be on TNT at 4:05 p.m. Gonzaga, number 8, Gonzaga versus number 9, Georgia at 4:35 p.m. on TBS. Another one. Number 7, Kansas versus number 10, Arkansas. Something tells me that one is going to be
yeah,
interesting.
I think I was actually talking with a colleague of mine that could actually be, I think, like the sleeper game because and I also agree with you uh with Louisville. They were in the ACC final. You know, I kind of figured they could have been like a fifth or sixth seed, not an eight. And here's the thing: no matter how, games have close seeding like an eight or a nine, um, if you're a higher seed and you lose, that's an upset. It doesn't matter. So if Creighton beats Louisville, that is an upset. But I do agree with you. I kind of figured Louisville could be a higher seed because they played in the ACC final. So, they could have earned a fifth or sixth. So I think Louisville may not have the chip on their shoulder like North Carolina may have playing in, but I think they're going to take advantage of, oh, you have us right here, so we're gonna see what we can do and play it. And their reward, if you will, would be the winner of Alabama State and Auburn. So, for that Louisville Creighton, I'm kind of go with Louisville on this one too. I think it also could be a close game. Like you said, Louisville is kind of playing with a chip on their shoulder. But going back to the Jayhawks and the Razorbacks, Kansas number 7, number 10, Arkansas, we've talked about teams you kind of got to be careful of when it comes to not just tournament time, but also if you haven't played them enough or you haven't seen them kind of in action. But the Jayhawks this year, they started off fairly well. They were on fire early in the season. Arkansas had kind of mini runs here or there. They'd run two or three, lose a game, win two or three, lose a game. And sometimes when they lost a game, it was a close game. Then other times they'd lose a game, they'd get blown out. But the Razorbacks need to not take it, not just downplay the Jayhawks style of play. And the Jayhawks, in comparison, not need to lose focus for the Arkansas Razorbacks. So, of the few games, that's kind of one of those we need to keep our binoculars looking into because I think that game could either come down to the wire or could be one of those first overtime games we might see.
And last but not least, Michigan versus UC San Diego. Michigan has hurt all over the place. UC San Diego, they could be a Cinderella team. They could knock off Michigan. The Wolverines have been hearing about this from everywhere. So that game, although that game is late for me, is at 10 p.m. on TBS. But oh man, I can't wait to see the highlights for that one tomorrow morning. If you're the Wolverines, you definitely gotta say something about that. But UC San Diego, that's a team that another team that I could say that it's on my, I'll say top 5 of potential Cinderella teams. But yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to see the highlights for that one because, like I said, 10 p.m. is late for me. I go to bed early, so
Yeah.
I'll check the highlights tomorrow and when we log in, whatever happens today, we're gonna fire off.
Yeah, and usually on the first day, when it comes to upsets, there's always been that number 12 seed that kind of knocks off a five. Past couple years we've seen a 15 knock off a two. Of course, we've seen a 16 knock off a one, but number 12 seems to kind of be a lucky number if you're seeded to knock off a five. So I agree with you. The Michigan Wolverines, a storied college basketball institution, and you don't want to get bogged down in kind of the negative that kind of makes you lose focus. The Wolverines, I think they are very prepared for UC San Diego, but they can't be also overconfident. Just like any higher seed, you never want to be overconfident when you are seeded in a tournament and you get these teams, like you say, maybe you are unfamiliar with, or because you are a favorite, or because when, oh, this team could be a Cinderella, you lose focus on the game at hand. So Michigan needs to pay attention to the game plan. They need to not kind of listen to the noise, and they need to get the job done. They need to get the job done, because if they are not prepared, if they are not focused, then they could be on upset alert